Good evening. Welcome to September the 3rd, 2024 Board of Aldermen meeting, which is hereby called to order. I'll ask Alderman Gil Earhart to lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Please stand.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Most gracious God and our Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this day, for your honor and glory, for this beautiful weather we've had. Thank you, Lord, for the protection of this city and those who serve it. Lord, as we go forward tonight and each and every day, you have asked us in your word to submit to authority and leaders in place because you've ordained all governments and all rulers. And Lord, if we just align our will with you, we know that all things will work out according to those who love you and call to your purpose. Lord, I pray that tonight's meeting will be honorable and glorifying to you, that you'll guide us and give us wisdom to make the decisions that would be best for this city and those who live here and those who serve here. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Ms. Stewart, would you conduct roll call?
Aldridge. Collins. Here. Dickerson. Here. Earhart.
Here.
Hamilton. Here. Henderson. Here. Wallace.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart, all present. So a quorum is established. Just a reminder for our audience tonight that these meetings are live streamed and recorded on the city's YouTube channel for playback at a later date. And those of us with microphones, as a general reminder to make sure the microphone is illuminated on green, it is on when we're speaking so that we can be heard. Board, you have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of August the 20th. Any questions about those minutes? And if no questions, any motions?
Second.
Motion to approve by Alderman Collins, second Alderwoman Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Let's see, Mr. Cox. Let's hold this one until he gets here. Board, you have just a couple announcements, and then when Mr. J.D. Cox of North Central joins us, who is en route, I understand, we'll finish that part of this meeting. But Olive Branch High School had a gathering. Several of you were present. Large crowd, I guess 70 or 80 people, very large, good crowd. Reunion of all the individuals that graduated from 1977 and prior. Every 2 years have a celebration. I will not read the declaration, but a good gathering and a very positive event Saturday before last. Under Mayor's update, you have a document with just a couple pages. As recently as the last couple of hours, announcement was released on electronic news of Olive Branch, Mississippi ranks among the fastest growing suburbs. As if we didn't know that, but we're delighted that we were the only one in the state of Mississippi that among the fastest growing suburbs and best places to live with homes valued under $500,000. A new study by GoBankingRates.com, which compiled the list of the top 50 suburbs that are experiencing fast growth but still have relatively affordable housing. So Olive Branch is number 6 on that list. They quote our population of 45,938 in 2022, and we know that's very close to the 50,000 mark at this time. So it was only 5 weeks ago that Olive Branch was listed one of the best places for families to live by Fortune.com, and the only city in Mississippi to receive that designation in 2024. So some very positive things happening. I get asked from the peer mayors from time to time, how do you sign up or how do you apply? We don't apply. There's no way to apply. They find us, and we're thankful for the ratings and the demographics and things that make this possible. So we don't solicit these awards, but we're delighted when we do receive them. Also, in your packet, on the second page, HR stats from the last month as far as onboarding and purchase orders and et cetera, things that you'll find worthwhile, different volunteer events, open enrollments officially closed, those kind of things that our department heads and our team members obviously look at. Following pages are the fire calls from EMS dispatches, 436 dispatches last month. 364 fire department dispatches, again, 436 EMS, and then it breaks down the type of fire calls and dispatches that our men and women in fire services are making, as well as the public events that they have attended rather last month. And the police department stats and the other stats, more in depth, I'll bring those to you the next meeting. Any questions about that information, board? You have the consent agenda, which is relatively large this go around, but consent agenda items 1 through 25. Are there any questions on those particular items? Or any motions? Mr. Wallace, motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to approve minutes as is, as submitted. Following the agenda, under old business, this is a public hearing date for consideration of an appeal filed by Robert C. Bass, Phelps Dunbar, LLP, of the Board of Adjustments, July the 11th, 2024, denial of a conditional use permit application for a convenience store with fuel pumps to be established on 5.5 plus or minus acres, proposed Lot 4 of Racetrack, Hacks Cross subdivision. The subject property is zoned C2, Highway Commercial District, and is located at the southwest corner of Hacks Cross Road and Highway 302. This public hearing date was set on August the 6th to take place today's date, and obviously publicized along the way for today's hearing. Staff report, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On tonight's agenda, you actually have two related applications, and the first one, which is the one that you just read the caption of, Mayor, deals with the use of the property. And then the second application that you have, which is the subsequent item on the Board of Aldermen agenda, is for the subdivision of property. And so I'll start by showing you the property, the larger property that is proposed for subdivision. It is about 43.2 acres in size, and that property is currently vacant and unplatted land. And then the proposed use of the property is what we're dealing with in this first agenda item, and that is a proposed lot within that larger subdivision, and it's 5.5 acres, and it's proposed Lot 4 of the Racetrack Hacks Cross subdivision. So just to get our bearings as to the location of our property, we are at the southwest corner of Highway 302 and Hacks Cross Road. This is Branch Road that runs through the Branch subdivision, which is a single-family residential subdivision located on the west side of the subject property. And then Branch Road dead ends into Old Goodman Road, located here. And this is a convenience store with fuel pumps that's currently under construction at the intersection of Old Goodman Road and Highway 302. As you go farther down the road to the east, this is a commercialized intersection, that being Hacks Cross and Highway 302. We have a shopping center building here, fast food establishments, Wendy's, Hardee's there. This is the Walgreens located at the corner, and then we have a new Zaxby's restaurant that recently opened over at the northeast corner of the property, or the intersection, I should say. And this is the area on the southeast side of the intersection that was recently approved for a planned development called Oak Park Town Center that has some mixed uses in there, which is on this vacant property. As far as the appeal that you're hearing tonight, this dates back to the July 11th, 2024 Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting, at which time they unanimously, by a 5-0 margin, passed a motion to deny a conditional use permit application that sought approval to develop a racetrack convenience store with fuel pumps, including some truck fueling positions on that 5.5 acre Lot 4 of the proposed racetrack Hacks Cross subdivision. This shows you where that Lot 4 is located in the larger subdivision, and then this is a little blow-up of the actual site plan. Within the 10-day period following that BZA decision, that was appealed to the Board of Aldermen, and you are the appeal body per our zoning code. And what our zoning code says is that upon a majority vote of those present in voting, the Board of Aldermen may affirm, reverse, remand, or modify the decision of the Board of Adjustment. So one thing that I do want to point out is that regardless or irrespective of the decision you make on this first agenda item, even if you were to decide that you wanted to uphold what the Board of Zoning Adjustment said and deny that conditional use permit, that we would still have the next item on the agenda, which is the subdivision of that 43.2 acres into 7 commercial lots and private drives. Now, the one thing to consider here is all of this property, Lot 4 and all of the property in this proposed subdivision is zoned C2. So you could have any number of uses are permitted outright under the C2 zone, things like restaurants, hotels, grocery store, retail center, indoor shooting gallery, lumber yard, automobile services, or you could have even sales of cars, boats, RVs, campers, or even sales of mobile homes on that proposed Lot 4 or anywhere within this larger subdivision. And I would also point out that that preliminary plat, being a separate item, did track through the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission on July 9th did recommend approval of that subdivision by a 5-to-1 margin. So this just shows you, this is a list from our C2 zoning district straight out of the code, and all of the areas that I highlighted there with the red boxes are some of those examples that I read you under the previous agenda item. So if we need to, we can go back to this slide for reference. Just a little bit of background on this property. Records show that it was annexed back in 1990, and again, it's zoned C2, highway general commercial or highway commercial. Now the portion, if you go back in some of the historical records, the portion that is south of this right-of-way of Old Goodman Road that's no longer in use shows on a 1991 zoning map that was actually zoned C2 back at that time. And the next zoning map that I was able to find was a 2000 zoning map, and that was done obviously after the bypass, the Highway 302 bypass was done, and that showed this part of the property also zoned C2. So I do want to emphasize that the C2 zoning for this property has been in place for well over 20 years based upon the records that I was able to locate. Now, it's important to note here that when these C-stores with fuel pumps became a conditional use in the C2 zone was done by action of the Board of Aldermen back on November 15th of 2022. So that's less than 2 years old. But before that time, if this proposal had come in to put a gas station or C-store on this property, it would have been something that would have been permitted outright in the C2 zone, meaning no conditional use permit would have been required or have been heard by the Board of Adjustment. And obviously, had that been the case, we would not be having this appeal hearing tonight. And in fact, this is the very first conditional use permit application that we've heard under these new regulations that the board adopted back in November of 2022. Now, I think we get a lot of questions, and people ask, well, we see all these C-stores that are coming out of the ground at these different locations, and a lot of those they weren't done under this ordinance. Those were ones that were in planned developments that had been approved prior, had plans already reviewed at the time that you adopted the ordinance. Maybe they hadn't started coming out of the ground, but even some of them already had building permits. For example, that C-store that I mentioned earlier at Old Goodman Road and Highway 302, plans had already been reviewed and approved for that C-store before you adopted that ordinance, which is why it didn't have to go through a conditional use permit application. So the basic requirements of the ordinance that you adopted back in 2022 were to be an eligible site. It needed to be at a corner of a signalized intersection, and no more than 2 of the 4 corners could have C-stores on them. So There's really no dispute here that we have only, this would be the only proposed C-store at this four-way intersection, and it is in fact signalized, so the application met that general requirement or basic requirement of the ordinance. So this just shows you a blown-up plan of what's being proposed. The racetrack C-store itself, which is located here, is 6,000 square feet in size. You've got a canopy in the front of the store. This would be Old Goodman Road along the north side of the property. And this canopy is for fueling of passenger vehicles in the front. And you have the truck fueling positions that are on the south side of the store. There's 4 of them, actually 4.5 of them. This one farthest to the south can accommodate, smaller box trucks, but you have those, and there are no additional parking spaces for trucks. So basically the way this would function is trucks would come in here, use these fueling stations. They may pull up beyond, once they pump their fuel here, and park there, go into the convenience store, use the facilities, buy something. And the racetrack folks indicated at the last meeting that the stops would be about 15 to 20 minutes on average based on their studies. One point that I do want to emphasize is that this is not a truck stop. I've put the definition, our code definition of what a truck stop is posted there. I won't read it, but it involves truck parking, long-term or possibly overnight, or having facilities in there for truckers to stop and shower, those types of things, or even truck repairs. So this does not qualify in our zoning code under the definition of a truck stop. I would say that this development is probably very comparable to what we see at Quick Trip that was recently developed within the last couple years down there at Nail and 305. This is a little bit less than what Quick Trip did. The site is a little bit smaller, the building's smaller, and look today, and Quick Trip actually has 6.5 fueling lanes. This one's got 4, and then the Quick Trip down there has 8 spaces for trucks to park, and this site has 0 spaces for trucks to park. So this is kind of similar to Quick Trip. The sizes of the sites are about the same. I think Quick Trip was a little bit under 6 acres, this one at 5.5, but it's pretty similar if you could envision what that would be. This is not anything like the Flying J, which has a number of truck parking spaces there. So the associated application, again, is for a subdivision. It's a preliminary plat. This will be the next item on your agenda, and it proposes to subdivide this 43 acres into 7 commercial lots and a private driveway system that you can see. And racetrack, again, is proposed for this 5.5 acre lot 4, and this is a phased-in project, and it's intended to have the second phase being completion of this driveway that would go to the west and connect to Branch Road. So phase 1, you can see the line right here, would include the lot for the racetrack, and then 2 other commercial lots that would be located along the west side of Hacks Cross Road. Now, at the point, and again, we'll talk about this in the next agenda item, which is dealing with the plat, but at the point that this road were to be connected, we have some requirements under the preliminary plat. One of those requirements is that upon that connection being made, that this intersection of Old Goodman Road and Highway 302 would have to be signalized. And then also a second requirement would be that the West Brown approach turn lane would have to be extended to allow for more stacking. So you would have those 2 as requirements. Again, this isn't necessarily related to the racetrack proposal, but this will be the next agenda item that we'll talk about with regard to the preliminary plat and what would be required as part of that platting exercise. And so one of the points I do want to make about this connecting road is that it will not be open to any type of truck traffic. So all of the trucks would exclusively use Hacks Cross. And so you can see this is one of the items that was in your packet, and this shows you your truck circulation patterns. This again being Hacks Cross over on the east side of the screen. And then you can see the green truck shows you how, or the green outline shows you how a truck would come through and fuel. One of the points, they have a access point here close to the canopy, this would be signed for no trucks to be able to use that, and it would be a right-in only for the passenger vehicles. So when the truck came in here and back around this way, we would have no truck signage that would be required there, and then this turn radius would be designed so a truck actually couldn't make a left-hand turn and go back in that direction. So a truck would be forced to go back out onto Hacks Cross. And so this entrance that I'm showing is this entrance right here, and it's about 600 feet away from the center point of that intersection at Highway 302. So again, I just wanted to point out that no truck traffic would go near the Branch residence, but we have about a 650-foot distance between the back of this proposed lot and the backyards of any of the single-family residential homes in the Branch subdivision. So continuing on with some of the preliminary plat conditions related to this initial phase one is that there are some traffic mitigation measures that are being put in place, and we'll discuss those again more in the second item, but these are more related to how racetrack would actually function in considering their traffic. You'd have a new lane that would be built along the west side of Hacks Cross, so you'd have a continuous right-hand turn lane there. In this first entrance into the development, it's located about here at the midpoint of Lot 4, and that would be for right-in only, and it would be restricted to only passenger vehicles. So a vehicle would come in there and be able to use to fuel up at the passenger fuel canopy that's in the front or to the north of the store. Now, some other provisions we have in the preliminary plat is that we've restricted access to that being a right-in, the new lane, and also the only other access points, 2 full access points, would be at these 2 driveways. So you can see lots 2 and lot 3 would have no additional access. So again, some pretty good access controls there, and a truck, again, would exit here, which would be here, which would be a full, right in, right out, or, left in, left out type of situation, or it could be left in as well. Some general transportation issues and requirements related to the development. One of the main reasons and one of the main questions that's come up is why do we even need this 1,600-foot private drive connecting Branch Road to Hacks Cross? And the reason for that is you have these lots that are up in this location, and they do have frontage on Old Goodman and Branch Road, but this is a limited access highway, which basically means that none of these 4 lots that you see fronting along Highway 302 can have their own access point. That's disallowed by state MDOT, so there is no access. So that really is the reason why you have this to begin with and have to have access over here off of Branch Road. Some other general points, sidewalks are a requirement that, again, I'm talking about the next agenda item and the preliminary plat. So on this private driveway, you would have sidewalk, curb, and gutter sections through there, and then also curb, gutter, and sidewalks along the side or the west side of Hacks Cross. Now, one of the things that we also put into the recommended conditions, and again, this is the next item, is that at the point that we got to phase 2 and had that completed driveway, we would require an update of the traffic study, and at that time the traffic study would account for whatever development was already in the 43 acres, which might already be built at that point in time, and then anticipate uses on any of the property that was still remaining undeveloped on the additional lots that would be platted. So this shows you a view looking due east on the existing Old Goodman Road right-of-way, and so you can see the Branch subdivision signage right there to the right, which is right about here. So one of the points that could be advantageous for the Branch subdivision would be relocation of this driveway. Instead of it being as close to Branch subdivision as it is, it would be moved up a few hundred feet to the north, so it would be a little bit farther away. There's a lot of work that has to be done with regard to rerouting some of these utility lines and rerouting the overhead utility lines for electric, and then rerouting some of the utility lines for water, sewer, and gas that run along that old Goodman Road, old right-of-way, and we'll talk about those a little bit under the next agenda item. So into the actual substance of what you all need to make a determination on tonight. This is a definition of a conditional use, and it's a use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction throughout the zoning district, but which, if controlled as to number, area, location, or relation to the neighborhood, would promote public health, safety, morals, comfort, convenience, appearance, etc. So there are 6 criteria that are used to determine whether or not a conditional use permit should be approved, and these are the 6 criteria that the Board of Zoning Adjustment, went over at the time and made their determination on, and it's the ones that staff always evaluate, in advance of the Board of Adjustment meeting to determine what the staff position might be. So starting with number 1, will the use adversely affect the character of the neighborhood? And as I had mentioned earlier, we have a situation where the racetrack that's being proposed is about 650 feet away from the nearest rear lot line of the closest residential property. And we've got a big chunk of commercial property that's in between where the racetrack would go and the single-family area. And that's at the farthest location, that's farthest away from the branch subdivision as was available to them. So I tried to find some comparables that you could find throughout the city, and so I found this one, and this is Pleasant Hill Road and Church Road, and we're here in the southeast corner of that intersection. This is the Marguerite Manor subdivision, and so if you look at the distance between the convenience store, now granted this is not the size of the racetrack, a smaller one, but the distance between the back of that lot for the C-store and the nearest residential lot is 690 feet, and then you have a whole area of commercially designated land that's in the master plan that hasn't been developed yet. So I can say with certainty that as far as the character of the Marguerite Manor neighborhood, it's not been affected in any adverse way by that convenience store being there. It's been there for about 8 years, and there's been no adverse effect on the character, property value, or anything like that. Now, that may not be the case when this commercial area develops. It could have more of a negative impact, and I think you could make the same argument if you were to look at the situation with the racetrack and the branch subdivision. When that area that's in between the proposed racetrack and the single-family residential subdivision developed, it could in fact possibly have a negative adverse impact, but there wouldn't necessarily be evidence at this time that would suggest that it would. Now, the Board of Zoning Adjustment did express concerns regarding what might happen at racetrack. They thought that it could bring potential crime, and they thought there would be an impact from the truck traffic, and they thought that that could definitely negatively impact the property values, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the conditions. So condition number 2 deals with the overtaxing or potential overtaxing of public utilities or community facilities, and in that preliminary plat, we looked at water, sewer, and gas and electric. It's all available out there. The developer's planning to build drives that would be privately maintained, so there would be no evidence to suggest that public utilities or community facilities would be overtaxed, and our Board of Zoning Adjustment did agree with that evaluation. I think the major one where there may have been disagreement was number 3, and that was whether the use would substantially increase traffic congestion or other hazards. And so from the staff perspective, traffic is going to increase, but the traffic study that was evaluated by city engineer and myself found that there would be no deficiencies created from the racetrack. And when I say no deficiencies, I'm talking about the actual level of service standard that would be at Highway 302 and Hacks Cross Road. That the traffic study basically took existing traffic and they added in the traffic that would be generated by the racetrack and found that it would still be functioning at acceptable levels of service standards. So now, one important point to consider about that traffic study was they kind of did it in a very conservative way. They assumed kind of the worst-case scenario, and they said that all of those trips that would be using racetrack would all be new trips out on the roadway that aren't currently there running through that intersection. But the reality is that they anticipate that 60% of the traffic that would be running through that intersection would be something that would be captured. It's called pass-by trips. So, and I will say, really over the last few months, if you go out there and watch that intersection, you can certainly see there's a good amount of truck traffic that's currently through there. So rather than them saying that it would be generating new trips running through that intersection, they're talking about picking up the truck trips that are already out there, you know, on the roadway system. But even assuming that they were all new trips, the traffic study did show that intersection would still function at an acceptable level of service standard. And then some of the requirements that were imposed by city engineer and city planning, you know, were related to the improvements that would be required, you know, namely making that northernmost entranceway right-in only, not allowing trucks to use it. So that came from the staff, and then also the requirement to build the additional lane was also one that came as a result of the staff evaluation. So the traffic study didn't even consider those improvements in making the determination that it did. Now, you know, and again, the main entrance that the trucks would be using to go back out onto Hacks Cross is about 600 feet away from Highway 302. So the staff deemed that that would probably be sufficient distance to make those trips safely. Now, this is one where our Board of Zoning Adjustment strongly disagreed. They noted that the traffic study did not incorporate accident data from that intersection, and they said that Hacks Cross, there's some signs, there's curvature of the road out there, and I think you saw it in your packet where there's, you know, some indication that they did not feel that that would be safe, and the BZA did not believe that any mitigation measures, that being, you know, the new lane or restricting the truck traffic was going to work. They were kind of the opinion that if you're that close, 600 feet to that intersection, it could create a lot of conflicts with respect to truck traffic going in and out of there, and that was just too close to Highway 302. Criteria number 4 deals with would the use increase the danger of fire, flood, or otherwise endanger public health, safety, or welfare. Racetrack in the larger subdivision is going to have to provide all of our stormwater, cities meet the city's stormwater detention requirements and all the requirements when they went vertical of the International Fire Code that the city's adopted by reference. So from the staff perspective, there was no indication that that criteria could not be met. Again, our Board of Zoning Adjustment believed very strongly that a racetrack would bring crime and thus endanger public safety, health, or welfare. And then, you know, dealing with the next criteria, number 5, about diminishing or impairing property values, you know, they thought that that could have a negative impact. You know, staff was of the opinion it was probably far enough away and that the trucks would not be using that road, that it wouldn't have a negative impact on any values in the branch subdivision. But the BZA did correctly note when they were reviewing the application that the applicant did not provide any evidence to suggest that property values in the branch would not be adversely impacted by racetrack. And so that's something that you may hear from racetrack tonight. They may provide that information. This is a de novo hearing, so it means that new evidence can be introduced. And then finally, number 6 deals with whether the use would comply with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan, our 2040 comp plan. Future land use map does designate this property as a major commercial node, so there's no type of disagreement that what's being proposed certainly would fall into the future land use category of a major commercial node. So the first box up here on the left states this is the recommendation that the staff originally gave our Board of Zoning Adjustment, and it was to approve a conditional use permit for 20 years to allow for that use to be allowed on that property. It was made subject to the 4 conditions, one dealing with making sure that the plat got approved and recorded with all those traffic mitigation measures in place, administrative review and approval of the final civil site and landscape plans, building elevations and lighting plan, making sure that they all meet our city's design review requirements. Number 3, dealing with making sure that northernmost entrance was limited to right-in only for passenger vehicles and not trucks. And then to make sure that we had signage or other provisions that would restrict truck traffic from using that road through there. Our Board of Adjustment passed their motion to deny, and they believed that all the criteria had not been met, that it would adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, substantially increase traffic congestion or other hazards, and endanger public health, safety, and welfare, and that there was no proof of property values would not be impaired. And so again, they passed that motion to deny the application. You have 4 available alternatives. I mentioned them earlier. Number 1, you could simply affirm the decision of the Board of Zoning Adjustment and deny the application or uphold what they did, and that would be finding that the criteria were not met due to these adverse impacts that I just mentioned. You could reverse the decision of the Board of Adjustment and approve based on findings that those criteria are met. If the board did opt for that number 2, staff would recommend that you would include those 4 conditions that were recommended to the Board of Adjustment. Number 3, you could remand the application back to the Board of Adjustment for further consideration. And if you did choose this option, it would be recommended that you would tell the appellant to provide revised traffic study data to address some of their concerns, as well as information regarding crime and impact on property values. 4th, you could modify the Board of Zoning Adjustments decision and reverse it. You could add whatever conditions of approval you all deem to be appropriate. You could, for example, require, we have it proposed that for example, a traffic signal on Hacks Cross would be something that would be evaluated at phase 2. You could, in fact, require that evaluation earlier. You could do something like, just to make 100% certain that trucks weren't going through here, you could do something like make them design a traffic circle or some other measure there to make sure that trucks wouldn't be able to physically get through that area. You could add a condition in, and again, this could be part of the next agenda item, which is the preliminary plat. You know, one example would be a tree preservation easement. There's some nice mature strand of vegetation along there, so a 50-foot wide tree preservation easement along this property could be required as part of the future platting. And that concludes the presentation, Mayor. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. Board, any questions regarding this staff report?
I got a couple. I was reading the appeal of and the answers, questions and answers when they applied for the thing. And looks like 4 out of the 6 questions weren't even answers. Basically, just reading the question back to you in a statement. I don't understand why they didn't provide an answer.
Well, I think that they're here.
It's just telling,
Yes, sir.
it just is what it is. Well, that's not an answer.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the question.
They're here tonight, so that would be the applicant would need to present that information to you.
All right, and on the Hacks Cross intersection, what was the reason? Is it because Hacks Cross, as it crosses over, the lanes are very uneven? I mean, it's like doing like this as you cross over one way to the other. Even in a normal car, sometimes you bottom it out. Is the question whether or not it's dangerous because creating a bottleneck as people try to turn right because of the uneven road? Or what was the reason they said it was bad there for traffic?
Andy may want to answer, but I believe when our Board of Zoning Adjustment looked at this, they were concerned that trucks would be turning back onto Hacks Cross too close to the Highway 302 intersection. And then if you look at that road, it's got a slight curvature to it
Right.
out here. And so they were concerned. I'm not sure if site visibility or whether the curvature of that road. I mean, Andy may want to add in something on that.
So your question is about the actual cross section going across the road?
I didn't know if that was a part of the complaint or the concerns or not. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but that's typical. You're gonna have to have, one road is gonna have more of a hump and one's gonna be the one that's gonna go straight through. You're gonna have to decide that everyone, at any intersection. For this one in particular, I'm sure Highway 302 is the one that's gonna be the main thoroughfare. So in other words, if you're on Hacks Cross, you're gonna feel more of a bump going across 302 than you would be on 302.
Because it's a great deal higher than most intersections, though, because as you come up, you go down and then back up at the center, and then back down as you cross over. So,
You might feel that if you're going at a higher rate of speed, if you get the green light through there, you might feel it. So it is something that they have to look at from time to time, but if you're in a stop scenario, you're not gonna have the issue.
thank you.
Okay.
Additional questions?
Mayor, I do have a few for the applicant.
Would the applicant come forward, representative of the applicant, Mr. Bass? For individuals that come forward to address the board tonight, please begin with your name and your home address. And there's some blue comment cards on the surface behind the speaker's area. If you will, complete the blue card and give it to the clerk to your left and my right, so she'll know who spoke tonight. And also, Mr. Bass, after Mr. Earhart's questions, if you wish to address the other questions that Mr. Wallace had, there were open items from the Board of Zoning Adjustments, you may do that as well.
Mayor Adams, would you like for me to complete the form before I begin speaking?
No, if you'll complete it afterwards for whoever speaks tonight, go ahead and speak, but start with your name and home address so we can capture it for the record. And then the blue card is just belt and suspenders as a follow-up to make sure we actually capture everybody that speaks tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So my name is Robert Bass. My address is 360 North Main Street, Pontotoc, Mississippi, 38863. Mr. Earhart, did you have a question initially?
Yes, sir, I did. Thank you, Mr. Bass, for coming tonight. A couple of questions for me. Number one, in our staff report, you indicated that after the BZA's meeting that you felt like there were errors made in that decision. Would you clarify from your perspective, please, sir, what those errors were?
That is correct. So first of all, thank each of you for allowing us to be here. Jason, your staff, we certainly appreciate the work that you've done in putting together a presentation. With respect to the errors, we'll start really with I think the first thing. It's would the proposed use adversely affect the neighborhood? The Board of Adjustment found in the minutes that the proposed use would in fact adversely affect the neighborhood because the gas station approved in the Oak Park Town Center was required by the board to be located away from Hacks Cross Road and the canopy placed at the rear. So one, I believe that in error because if you look at the mixed-use development of Oak Park, there's a strip of land. If you see it's on the west side there, and so that portion of the property is not included in the PUD. Therefore, I don't think it's possible for a C-store to be located there. If so, it would not meet the city's criteria that it's at a hard corner at a signalized intersection. Moreover, I believe that a C-store was approved in that PUD. It was to be located, I believe, on the other side at Woods Boulevard, and it was conditioned upon the ultimate installation of a traffic signal. I think that's important, for a lot of these questions, especially with respect to the character of the neighborhood. The Oak Park Town Center is actually a mixed-use center that includes, many retail uses, residential as well. And if the developer himself and maybe in the city agreed that that particular C-store there would not adversely affect the development that he was creating by requesting that a C-store be included within that development as a permitted use. Again, to me, that kind of goes against the argument that I believe the Board of Adjustment was trying to make with respect to the location of Hacks Crossroads. So again, I think that is an error, just because I'm not sure that the rationale for the board requiring that C-store be relocated to the other side to, again, to Woods Boulevard, I don't think that had anything to do with the issues that we're dealing with here with respect to the character of the neighborhood.
Would it be fair to say that rather than an error, that's more an objective opinion of what the area neighborhood is?
That is correct. I mean, I believe that is, I believe it was an error in that it was incorrectly stating the purpose, you know, for the C-store not being located at Hacks Cross.
Okay.
Right, and I don't think we can
If you
expect
don't
the
mind, just-
applicant to answer for another developer's proposed development. I don't think we can expect you as an applicant to answer on another proposed development. That would be up to that developer to answer those questions.
Yes, sir. And if I could continue there with respect to, you know, as we go through, will the proposed use increase danger of fire, flood, or otherwise endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare? You know, so this site, the Board of Adjustment said that this site would increase danger to public health because a similar location in Atlanta with the same proposed safety standards was shut down by the city. So first of all, that particular property was a voluntary closure. I have here just a quote generally from Natalie Morris, the racetrack CEO at the time, with respect to that closure. I'm deeply saddened by the recent senseless acts of violence at and near this store. As an Atlanta-based business, we did not reach this decision lightly. We know how important our stores are to the community. They're open to guests 24/7, 365. They create local jobs, generate taxes, play a critical role in the states in which they operate. However, racetrack can only be successful when our stores are safe for our team members and our guests. So again, the stated reason for the closure of the downtown Atlanta store, which for those of you who may not know, was a result of a shooting in a very dangerous area in downtown Atlanta. I believe just, you know, the crime rates did not subside post-closure to the, you know, closing the store. And I believe it's just an incorrect comparison with respect to Olive Branch in Atlanta. Atlanta having, you know, approximately 6.3 million residents and 47,000 approximately here in Olive Branch. The FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program says that violent and property crime rates are over 100% higher than those same rates in Olive Branch. And so again, I think the rationale that is in the minutes for the board's decision with respect to you know, the danger and citing something that happened in Atlanta and incorrectly citing that it was a requirement by the city when it was a voluntary closure. That's, again, just one other place that I see that it would be an error.
The city had been pressured, Atlanta had been pressuring racetrack to address security in that area. And I think the same thing happens in some of them in the Memphis area as well.
And it's my understanding in that location, there were several other businesses that were experiencing the same thing and also experiencing the crime, again, in an area of town where there's just historically been issues. Since the racetrack closure, there's not been any decrease, again, in, and we had some supporting evidence with other businesses, you know, where their crime rates actually increased over that period of time, you know, the 180-day period following the closure of the racetrack store.
Additional questions of the applicant?
Actually, if you don't mind, I would like for you to address, I assume you had no argument or error with item number 2 on the 6 criteria.
So with respect to the overtaxing the public utilities or community facilities,
Correct. No argument or opinion there.
I believe that was one that the board actually said that we did meet that criteria. And I did have actually a response there, and it was included in our initial letter that was submitted with the proposal. With respect to overtaxing utilities and community facilities, I think it's important to know that Racetrack employs a special team that's dedicated to ensuring operational efficiency and environmental sustainability with LED lighting, smart irrigation, water usage, and leak detection systems. Racetrack has saved nearly 400 megawatt hours of energy and over 900 million gallons of water since 2012. And so again, our position is certainly, we agree with the staff's position on this, that there's sufficient utilities, that Racetrack would not overburden those utilities, especially considering that the property as a whole is designated as C2, which is, I think it's important to note that the primary purpose that is stated in the Code of Ordinance, it said, if you would allow me 1 second. So it says, the purpose of this district is to provide for retail and service outlets serving not only nearby residential areas, but distant areas as well, and especially the needs of through highway traffic. Mr. Gambone listed several of the other uses that would be permitted in this particular district. Think of large car dealerships that could be put on the property, a lumber yard, fast food restaurants, which we know generate significant amount of traffic, significantly more, which in this, I believe our traffic study would agree with, where over 60% at a conservative estimate of the trips to a convenience store are passed by trips, which again is part of the purpose for this, to serve the needs of the highway traffic. I believe that we do that, and you don't have significantly more traffic coming to a Racetrack convenience store than you would, I don't want to even call out certain large big box retail stores that were there, but my wife would drive from Pontotoc to shop at one once a week if it were there. So you have people that are going to a large location, to shop or to visit, whereas the Racetrack traffic, just as most of you know, most of the time when you're going to a convenience store, you're not leaving the house to go to a grocery store, to go to a convenience store. Rather, you are stopping because you need it. And that's sort of what we're trying to accomplish here. I think it goes back to the area as a whole. If you look, what is the neighborhood? When we're talking about the adversely affecting the character of the neighborhood, well, it's very easy for us to say, the branch subdivision. Because there are, clearly people here tonight, and I've spoken with many of them in the past at the prior meetings that are objecting to this. But the neighborhood that we're discussing is, again, you have the mixed-use development just to the east. You do have the branch subdivision. You have the large warehouse distribution centers that are located, north and south. The Amazon, FedEx, Milwaukee Tools, all of those. And the purpose of this district is to serve those locations. And again, I'll repeat, it said especially the needs of through highway traffic. And so our position is that if not here, then where? If a convenience store would not be permitted in this location where we meet the criteria that was established in 2022 with respect to it's a hard corner at a signalized intersection, and there's only one you know, this particular intersection. So there's no other convenience store being developed. If not here, then where? And that's sort of been the thing that I've you know, tossed around in my mind. And then you start hearing, you know, the crime issue. As I mentioned, the stated reasoning within the board's decision was there was reference to crime in Atlanta. But in addition to that, I think it's important that I just make reference to the racetrack site and the things that the security measures that they'll have in place, whether that's the LED lighting with the maximum allowable illumination. Again, when it comes to my wife and my family, the reason that she pulls into a convenience store at night, wherever she is not because of the fuel price, it's how well lit it is. You know, does she feel safe walking in there? The layout of the interior of the store is open. There's a clear view into the store and from the lot, and there's minimal obstruction to glass, no windows. Racetrack offers 24/7 recording high-definition cameras throughout the parking lot and inside the store. And in fact, there's now within the city of Olive Branch, there's the ability to integrate your system, our system, with the city police department. We've spoken with them. Racetrack is certainly on board with doing that. And what that allows for is faster response times. If there is something that happens at that store, you know, from an investigation standpoint, it is significantly easier for them to conduct their investigation when they have direct access to our live feed of our cameras there. In addition to that, Racetrack is very involved and supports, you know, our local law enforcement. We establish strong relationships with all of our first responders, including, you know, providing free coffee to first responders just to encourage them to be at the store. We believe that's the best way to control crime. One of the big concerns that I have, though, with respect to crime is I do not believe the assertion that crime happens at C-stores. I don't believe that is supported by the data. I've had some correspondence and emails from the city police department. I believe since January 1 of this year, there were 294 calls within a 1.4 mile radius of this location. Of those, a vast majority are located, the calls came from the local residential areas and not from, you know, commercial businesses. I found that with respect to DeSoto County, and you all have some information with respect to Olive Branch, and I have that as well, but DeSoto County generally, 77.8% of the murders happened at local residences. This is the violent crime in DeSoto County. Aggravated assault, 61.9% occurred at residences, 13.4% at commercial establishment. Non-consensual sex offenses, 84.5% at local residences. If you get into drug offenses, the majority of them, 74.3%, happened at, you know, on the road or parking. There were 10.4% at commercial establishments, and that's not C-store. There were less. I'm just giving you generally just commercial establishments. 6% at residential. You had burglary. 54.7% occurred at residences as opposed to 36.6% commercial. Motor vehicle theft, 60.9% occurred at residences, 16.7% occurred at commercial establishments. So it's what does that mean? If we're here and it was a, you know, conditional use, which would be, or for us to put a residential subdivision in, I could certainly understand that the crime may be a concern. But there's really just nothing in the data that says that if a C-store, then crime. We've heard from a lot of the local residents, and I certainly empathize with them, but I really believe that the thought is, hey, we don't want any development on this 40-acre tract. We would love, for a park to be here. Well, unfortunately, from their standpoint, that's not what the city determined was the best use of this property. The Board of Adjustment actually found that, that our intended use actually complies with the comprehensive plan. I don't think that can be understated here. And I think it's worth noting that under Mississippi Code Annotated Section 1719, it provides in part that zoning regulations shall be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan. Olive Branch's comprehensive plan says that that the future land use plan is the primary element of a comprehensive plan as it sets forth the desired development pattern for future growth. The city of Olive Branch should by no means be characterized as a bedroom community. Olive Branch is full service. It goes on in objective 1.1. It says the future land use plan shall provide a blueprint for the city's growth and development for the 20-year planning period. And so with that said, the city, as part of their future land use plans, determined that this, and I'm focusing on this 5.5 acre tract, was a commercially zoned property. It could have, if it wanted that particular property to be a park, it could have designated that property as a green zone or many other things. It did not. While I will say that the future land use plan for a portion of the property, while it is all still zoned C2, is, I believe, some form of residential use on a portion of the property, but not this 5.5 acre tract. This 5.5 acre tract was determined by the city, that it should be used for commercial use. And again, until 2022, convenience stores with fuel pumps, they were used by right. They no longer are, but we believe that we meet all the requirements of a conditional use permit. We think we meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. And we believe that we're here to invest in this community. This project, I think the anticipated capital expenditures for racetracks between $12 and $15 million. They anticipate $750,000 of total sales tax revenue. Again, I think the diversion is 18.5% of that to the city of Olive Branch. And in addition to that, the employees, I think there's around maybe 15 anticipated employees for this site. Ad valorem tax increases. Right now we have a vacant lot. And this property, I was looking at pictures the other day from aerial photographs from 1990, I believe, when the property was annexed. It was generally a vacant lot. There may have been some improvements on it. But there's been nothing, there's no development on this property since that period. And it is intended by the city to be used for commercial purposes. And we believe that starting with a convenience store at that spot, a racetrack convenience store, not a truck stop, that is well lit with adequate security, would facilitate the growth of the remaining portions of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Bass, for articulating your comments there on those 6 items. I will make one comment as I close, that you mentioned if not here on this spot, then where? We have a convenience store immediately to the west of you and one roughly down the road to the south on Hacks. I don't know if you can speak for your applicant or not, or the person you represent, the entity, but you are aware there's a traffic signal already on 302 in Polk Lane. Nothing is there. Have you considered that site?
As you mentioned, I would hate to speak for my client with respect to this. I believe I am correct with respect to this location, that if you're going on Hacks Cross, maybe from Old 78 all the way to the next convenience store, which is past 302, around maybe the Milwaukee Tool Distribution Center, close to over 2 miles, that there is no convenience store. And again, you have all these warehouse distribution centers, and they do have trucks. And again, the purpose of this zoning ordinance is to serve the rest of this pass-by highway traffic. And we believe there's a need. I can assure you that Racetrack would not have identified this location if they didn't see an opportunity to succeed, financially.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
Mr. Bash, you may have addressed it, but I believe criteria 5 concerns any potential or substantial diminishment of property values. Can you, if I missed it, could you speak to that criteria, please?
Attorney Dye, I did not. I was maybe caught off guard. I'm certainly not a litigator, and sometimes I know when people speak before the Supreme Court, they go and they're all prepared, and then all of a sudden a justice asks them a question and it goes a different direction. I sort of feel like that to some extent. So with respect to diminishing the values or impair the values of the adjacent properties, I reached out to Jeff Norwood of Realty Valuation Group in Hernando, and he actually provided some data in DeSoto County where convenience stores were located in close proximity to residential communities. He gave me some average per square foot price, at these locations for periods prior to the construction and acquisition of the C-store property, and then at least a couple of years after that construction. And what you'll see is a steady increase, as you would expect. The Retreat at Center Hill, I think that's on Goodman Road. There's a Shell C-store property that was acquired in 2020. From 2018 until 2023, the average price, and this is based off of sales data, went from $98.59 per square foot to $153.82 per square foot. The Edgewater subdivision, which is in Hernando, I believe it's off of Highway 55, but still in DeSoto County, there was an Exxon property acquired in 2018. From 2016 until 2023, the property's values went from $84.49 a square foot to $154.67 per square foot. Again, the Bakersfield subdivision had a Nesbitt address also in DeSoto County. Again, these are C-stores that were developed after a residence was in place. So this is subsequent to the residence being built, or the residential subdivision being built. A C-store was put in place at the Bakersfield site from 2018 until 2023. Prices went from $105.03 per square foot to $160.37 per square foot. Again, the convenience store there was purchased in 2022. I'd also point out that at the southeast corner of Casey Road and Lee Creek Road, D.R. Horton Homes, which is arguably America's largest home builder, is currently developing a subdivision that adjoins an Exxon. Companies like that would unlikely, and again, I can't necessarily speak for them, but from a financial standpoint, they would not be going into an area right next to a C-store if they believe that the presence of a C-store with fuel pumps would decrease or diminish and significantly or substantially diminish the value of those homes. This last one that he gave me was the Pinewood North subdivision in South Haven. This Sky Lake Construction recently started a residential subdivision near C-store that is located at the southeast corner of, please forgive me, Teclahoma and State Line Roads.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
I do want to ask one for clarification. Number 3 asks about the traffic, the effect that it'll have on that. And I know we've talked about signaling. In your traffic study, tell me again what it too on the traffic signaling
Yes,
on
ma'am.
Hacks Cross.
I mean, and I think that is a good question. I mean, we've gone, the primary issues that we have heard throughout this entire process, traffic and crime. In our traffic study, I'll tell you, was done by Mr. Kaiser, Jonathan Kaiser, professional engineer, professional traffic operations engineer, professional transportation planner. He's of Kaiser Traffic and Engineering. He has over 25 years of experience. And if you don't mind, I'm going to allow him to step up and speak directly to the traffic questions. He is the expert in this area. I am certainly not. I would like to point out, though, and Mr. Kaiser can correct me if I'm wrong, but again, most of the permitted uses in this area, things that if would not be subject to a conditional use permit, you know, Walmart, forgive me for even saying, any kind of big box retailer would be a destination location that would generate significantly more traffic, you know, than this particular site. So I believe there are things, just as the city would do to protect itself and to protect its citizens with respect to the flow of traffic. If something was done there, I believe that the same thing could be done here for this C-store. Mr. Kaiser.
My name's Jonathan Kaiser, 35 Greystone Drive, Madison, Mississippi. I was having a hard time hearing what your question was about the traffic.
But I'm more concerned about the traffic on Hacks Cross Road exiting, entering into your project.
And so the Hacks Cross Road access, one of the real benefits of having a center turn lane on a highway like that is it's different than other highways or roadways where a car entering from the minor street has to have a gap simultaneously in both directions. With the center two-way left turn lane, you only have to have a gap in one direction at a time. So as cars are pulling out into Hacks Cross, they only have to have a gap in southbound traffic, which the traffic signal upstream will create these artificial gaps, allowing the car to turn left, get into the center turn lane, and then wait for a gap in northbound traffic to then merge in. So a two-way left turn lane is really a huge benefit to developments to allowing this two-stage movement to enter into the traffic.
And a traffic signal at that location?
A traffic signal was not shown to be warranted based on the volumes, and that was, I believe, originally when there was a full access intended at the north driveway for the property. The intersection of Pecan View and 302, it was shown to meet existing signal warrants, or all three of the vehicular volume-based warrants with existing traffic using the left turns from the major street. So there is opportunity, I think, particularly as you have more development on the property, that it could meet signal warrants. But this was the first phase of development, which was just the gas station.
Currently, if I made Ms. Hamilton's comment, so at this point, you don't feel like a signal would be warranted if a racetrack or similar business were to go there. In the future, if Lot 8 were to develop with a grocery store, hotel, whatever, from your professional opinion, would it be warranted then?
It's very likely, yes, with additional retail development, you could
Because of destination traffic more than pass-by?
Well, and pass-by volumes, pass-by traffic doesn't change your driveway volumes. It just changes the impact to the adjacent street. So you still have the same volume of traffic coming in and out of your driveways. But the newest trip generation manual that came out within the last 18 months to 2 years, it has very, very high trip generation rates for convenience markets with gas stations. So that it sometimes is higher than what's reasonable in the forecast of traffic. But even with that, we were showing acceptable levels of service at your driveways.
Any other traffic-related questions? Thank you.
And I guess I would add one more thing, is there was a question that had come up earlier about crash data, and after the report was submitted, I did speak with Mr. Swims about the crash data, and we did look at the crash data at those at the intersections on 302 at Hacks and Pecan View and Old Goodman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify for the board, earlier it was said that the city determined the best use of the property in 1990 was for commercial zoning. This property, again, came into the city in 1990, zoned commercial, and therefore the city has a legal requirement to honor that. Is that not correct, Mr. Dye?
It is correct. It's zoned. When property is annexed, it comes into the city as zoned by the county until such time as property is rezoned by the Board of Aldermen. And of course, what's before the board is not a rezoning of the property. It's a hearing on an appeal of a conditional use permit application.
Thank you. This is a public comment item.
I do have one question that we haven't talked about. Every time we have a convenience store gas station associated with gas pumps, one of the main questions and concerns of the public is what do you do if your tank leaks? And we had this discussion with one here a few months ago, and if I understood the technology of it, when a tank goes in the ground, if there is some type of apparatus that goes around that tank, and I think he told us that now a federal standard, that apparatus has to have a double wall on it, so that if the tank leaks and the wall leaks, that there's a second wall containing it. Did anybody in your group address that concern? This comes up
Thank-
every time we have convenience gas pumps, questions about what do you do if the tank leaks.
And I will say, just generally on that again, that would, there's spill contaminant solutions, emergency shut-off mechanisms with respect to, if there is something that happens, we have the technology in place to stop, your spills, with respect to the oversight of the USTs generally. I believe that is done by the state, and they make sure, again, I know with respect to transfers of tanks and certifications of tanks, that they're inspected, that most of these sites have wells. Again, I'll let John Paul Hoover with the racetrack speak to that to the extent he has actual knowledge.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bass. My name is John Paul Hoover. Address is 200 Galleria Parkway, Southeast, Suite 900, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339. I'm the engineering project manager for Racetrack. Certainly sympathize with the concern about tanks. We have a team dedicated to that and making sure that they're installed to all applicable regulations. As you mentioned, they are double walled. We have redundant emergency alert systems that our employees are trained to act on. And we have very quick response times to that. So that is certainly it's not a good situation if that were to happen, but we have several systems in place to ensure that if that ever were to happen, there's no significant effect.
I'm sure you have emergency fuel shutoffs at the store where either
Absolutely.
a store employee or customer could run, hit the button, and shut the pumps off.
Absolutely. You can see it if you go to an existing racetrack or a raceway. I'm sure several other gas stations also have a similar system. There's usually a red button near the tanks or somewhere around where you fuel. You run up and you hit it, and it would stop it.
Okay.
Any other engineering type questions for this gentleman?
I got a question. Mr. Gambone, can you put back up there, you'd earlier put up there some of the options that the board had, from sending it back to turning it down. I wanted to ask them one. All right, on number 4 there, you might want, I don't know which one of y'all, the 50-foot wide tree preservation, would that be addressed during this? At this time on this racetrack,
Well,
on option 4?
you could, but it would be basically something that you could impose really more for the preliminary plat, which is the next item, because that's a separate, it's a separate subject property.
All right,
Alderman Collins, if I could, just to add to Mr. Gambone's answer, I think he's correct. If the board were inclined to do that, I would recommend that it incorporate that sort of condition in both places, just so that there's no question as to what the intent of the board may be on that particular topic.
And we did have up there, somewhere was proposed possibly like a roundabout that would leave going right there, the traffic circle. Is that proposed by racetrack, or is that something that we could put in there? If it is.
Yes, sir, that was just a suggestion that you could, these are the types of things, I was just throwing out some examples of some things that the board could add on if they wanted to as conditions. It's within your purview, as it was the Board of Adjustment. You can add whatever conditions you believe would be
Okay.
necessary. That's why it's a conditional use
But-
permit.
You know, to my thinking, that would restrict any truck from trying to leave going back west. Now, I know we're gonna have signs and everything, and then what, all right, I'm, for my own clarification, for lots 7, 6, and 5, if they develop, then a light has to be put in.
Yes, sir. At the point, and I was planning to talk more about the phasing in the next application, but at the point that Phase 1 is the racetrack lot, these two others, along with this
Okay.
part of the driveway. Phase 2 is to connect this driveway. So at the point that that driveway were connected to Branch Road, that would require the signalization here at Pecan View, Old Goodman, and the extension of that turn lane. Then the next phase, Phase 3, would be to plat these three lots, 5, 6, and 7. And so at that point, once a lot is platted, then you could have vertical construction on it. And then the final phase would be platting Lot 8, which would be the one to the south of the road. So that's within the order of the plat.
Okay.
And that's I was gonna go into that again more in the next agenda item.
All right, racetrack, do y'all have any problem for sure putting in a traffic circle, I call them a roundabout, that's exits and that exits there?
The traffic circle isn't something that we proposed, but, we're up for creative solutions to preventing
Okay.
trucks from
I
using
mean,
it, like you
y'all
mentioned.
y'all did propose that then?
I believe that was just a note added in. Our original plans don't include a traffic circle, but
Yeah.
like I said, as you mentioned, we're gonna have the directional signage. If a traffic circle is something that the board would prefer, we're
Well,
happy to,
Well, personally, I
We
would.
won't have to.
A lot of signs don't work, people will just go right on by 'em.
We won't have to.
But if you impede them, then they can't go that way. Okay, that would be something I would like added if it's considered.
Any other engineering or design questions of the
I do
applicant?
have, before we get ready into public comment, Mr. Gamble, can you bring up that slide again with the C2 uses that you had, of all the uses that are already approved? I just need the public, whether you're here in person or you're viewing this online, to understand that the zoning that's in this location permits every one of these uses already, so that if this doesn't go through and somebody decides, okay, I'm gonna build a hotel, I'm gonna build a big store, I'm gonna build a car lot, there won't be a public hearing to say, I don't want that, because this is already approved for all of these other uses. The only thing that we're here tonight is whether to do, the conditional use that the Aldermen put in, and we put that in for safety reasons. We didn't put it in for trying to control the market and how many convenience stores we had. This was strictly a safety issue. We didn't want people pulling in and out of convenience stores in the middle of a block. We wanted signalization. We didn't want more than 2 in a location where we had a lot of traffic trying to turn in and out of convenience stores. Now, one of the questions that I hear a lot, and I'm sure the rest of the board does too, is why don't you just say no more convenience stores in Olive Branch? Just say no more, just cut them off. Well, the problem is that's illegal. The Mississippi Supreme Court has said you cannot control the market by denying somebody a valid use in their zoning just to say because you have too many of them. That's illegal. The Supreme Court, and I know our attorney will verify this, but that's not a valid reason to say we can't have any more or something. And you can fill in the blank: convenience stores, gas stations, Mexican restaurants, banks, storage buildings, whatever you want, you cannot stop them from coming in illegal zoning just because the public says we have too many of them. So I want everybody to be clear that that's just not an option for us to do. In any, not in necessarily this case, but just anywhere that somebody's putting in a convenience store that's got an approved zoning, and they say, okay, I've had this zone for 25 years, and now I'm finally going to get around to building it. We can't come back and say, no, you can't. That's not legal for us to do. Okay.
Yep, well put, Mr. Dixon. This being a public comment item, if you are here on behalf of this application, you would like to speak on behalf of it, you want this to be built, come forward at this time. Any proponents, you're in favor of it, you'd like to speak? Okay, before I take any opposition, you're opposed to this application, and just a couple housekeeping items. We try to hold to 3 to 5 minutes. We want you to get your information out, but I do want you to understand that the board is going to measure the items not by quantity, but by each item. For example, if you have a traffic concern and you bring that traffic concern forward, the next 5 people, you don't have to repeat that because they're going to hear about traffic concern one time. Same thing with crime. Unless you've got some specific stats or some things the board needs to hear, there's no need to repeat somebody that's already mentioned it. We could stay until midnight or 1 a.m., but then results, the board is going to vote based on what they see, what they hear, the staff report, the legalities they have to go by because they have requirements as well, and then it'll be over with after that. But I do ask that we maintain decorum. Nobody clapped and applauded when the applicant came forward. Nobody clapped or applauded for the staff report, and I ask the same type courtesy for when you come in opposition to an application that we maintain decorum and professionalism. One side can always out-clap or out-holler the other one, so we want to maintain professionalism in here. So now, if you are opposed to this application, you'd like to come forward and speak against it, please come forward. And there's 4 chairs lined up by the rail. You're welcome to sit in those chairs and come up one at a time. Give the clerk your name and address and speak in opposition.
Hi there. I'm Ruth Wilburn, 10368 Goodman Road, Olive Branch. With this racetrack proposal, I hope you will uphold the Board of Adjustment's decision to deny the approval of racetrack coming here. Traffic, of course, is the biggest issue, and it's already bad enough. And unless you ride up and down Hacks Cross Road, which I do every day going back and forth to work, it is going to get all the more worse because nobody talks about the new truck stop that's being built, the convenience store that's right there at Hacks and it's not Hacks, but Goodman and 302, and they're 0.3 of a mile from either side of this place. The traffic with a truck stop, and they keep calling it a convenience store and not a truck stop, but I'm sorry, in my world, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And so I think it's a truck stop. And the nature of a convenience store or a truck stop is in and out. So while they keep saying that if you have a big box store, there's going to be more traffic, well, they go in and stay for an hour or two. It's not in and out, in and out. And I don't understand some of these numbers or how they look at it, but you can make numbers say anything you want. I'm not naive enough to think that this land won't be developed, but racetrack is really not the answer. And I think before any more development goes on that corner, the state and the city needs to get together and develop a comprehensive traffic plan there, not the individual developers, because that is an accident looking for a place to happen, and they happen every day there. And they need to take into account all the increased traffic from the new stores that are being built, and I don't really hear that. They kind of sweep that under the rug. The other thing is obvious problems of crime, drugs, noise pollution, air pollution associated with truck stops and convenience stores.
There's the problem with the decrease in property values. And there are already houses going up for sale along Hacks Cross Road. I travel it every day, see it. No one wants a truck stop in their residential area, yet this piece of property somehow is surrounded by residential real estate. And our side of town seems to be inundated with convenience stores, which you say that that's not a legally defensible position to say that you can't have too many convenience stores, but it is if it affects the property values. And we need to develop a new comprehensive plan for Olive Branch. Olive Branch, as you just said tonight, has been voted one of the best places to live, and we need a new plan to keep it that way. Olive Branch can do better.
Thank you, Dr. Wilburn. Next.
Hello, my name is Brittany Fearing, and my husband and I are homeowners at 6680 Branch Road, Olive Branch, Mississippi. I wanted to speak to the conditional use permit because my husband and I specifically chose our home in this neighborhood because of the nature of the community. And if I remember correctly from the conditional use permit, it's important the nature of the community that this racetrack is being proposed for their site. We chose our home because this is a small, quiet neighborhood where they are single-family homes, and you could ask many of my neighbors, but our kids actually play in the streets in this neighborhood. I grew up in a big city, and I work in downtown Memphis. It would have been very convenient to stay in a big city, but we specifically chose this neighborhood because we wanted to raise a family. Like many young families in the area, we are young professionals, and while finances are important, we chose this home because we wanted to stay here. So this is my third time coming to these hearings after work because this is very important to us. We bought this home not just to invest in Olive Branch, not just to be homeowners, but because we thought this would be a good place to raise our family. And I feel deeply that the presence of a gas station is very unique from the other proposed commercial lots. I can accept that commercial development will happen. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I've seen that land develop before my eyes. And I'm not opposed to that, but I am opposed to a gas station being this close to our home because it is 24/7. It doesn't close at night, and it doesn't close when there's ice on the roads. And I just feel that although there are many steps being proposed by Racetrack to improve traffic situations and safety situations, I think that the very fact that this is something that they're really discussing, I think the fact that they're saying we need to put these roundabouts in, we need to do these traffic studies, I think it points to the fact that we're all concerned about the traffic that's going to happen 24/7 in this small neighborhood. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Rigoni, R-I-G-O-N-I. I'm a homeowner here in Olive Branch, and I live at 6338 Brayborn Place. My concern, like everyone else, is the amount of extra semi-traffic that'll be caused in this area. But on 302, if you go east, just past Center Hill Road, maybe a mile, a Shell station was opened up there within the past 3 years with at least 15 to 20 pumps for cars, and they have 4 stations for semi-trucks on the east side of the building for diesel, just for the semi-trucks to pull up there and fuel. I'm sure all the semi-trucks, just like all of our cars and that, we have GPS systems in them, and these professional drivers, they know where to get gas from. They know, hey, we better stop here, and I better stop here and get gas before I go any farther through South Haven to get to I-55 or east to the highway there. Excuse me, I'm still fairly new here. I retired off the railroad in Chicago for 30 years, and I moved here 5 years ago. But that was, my thing. Why do we need a gas station here with all of these pumps and the pumps for the diesel trucks to fuel up when we've got a station, what is that, maybe 3-4 miles just east of there that has 4 lanes for semis to pull in? They're going to know, hey, I better pull in here and then keep going either way. And there's plenty of gas stations on, what's that, north going up on Hacks Road. There's a brand new one that hasn't even opened yet, a Mobile. And then there's a Valero, and then there's one that they just opened up within the past couple of years right there. Most people know where to get gas. They go to their favorite place. We're creatures of habit. And as far as convenience stores, well, in my opinion, Walgreens is a glorified convenience store, and that's right across the street from there. And those gas stations also all have mini shopping marts in there where you can get, milk and some aspirin, whatever you need. So thank you for your time, and I'm against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Judy Oken from 6683 Persimmon Cove. 25 years ago, my husband and I and our family moved here into the Branch subdivision. And what we're seeing today is a different story. Now we got the gas station that has not even opened at our front door as we come out our subdivision. What's it gonna be when y'all open up this other little street on the side? How are we ever gonna get out of our subdivision? We don't need that kind of growth and that kind of traffic 24 hours, as we've already said before. And I appreciate it if y'all would really consider this and just think about if this was at your front door, what would you want? And also the builders that wants to do it. If it was right in their subdivision, coming out their front door, they would protest too. And I appreciate y'all really considering it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Curtis Wiseman. I live on Hacks Cross Road. You put a service station right across the street from me. They put a light down through there. It's enough traffic going through, the trucks taking off, cars snorting and going on. You can't sleep some of the time because the traffic is so heavy. In the afternoon, it's ridiculous. We do not want another gas station in the neighborhood. And we ask everybody in this crowd that will vote against it. Will you stand up, people that are against it? This crowd do not want this. Do not put this on us. We have enough gas station and things that's going making noise for nothing on us, but it's for somebody else. We live there. Don't put that on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiseman. Anyone else?
Pam Bean, 10160 Quail Road, Olive Branch. And I ask that you reconsider your direction on not letting people speak. They're not paid to be here. They're here because they're interested in what's going on. So allow them, please, to at least have a few minutes to voice their disagreement or opinion
who did we
on
deny
why they want it.
Ms. Bean, who did we deny an opportunity to speak?
Pardon me?
You said you're asking us to let people speak. We haven't denied anyone
Well,
an
you said
opportunity to speak.
don't come up if somebody else already covered
If
it.
they've already covered your item, right? This is not a quantity. These are categories. These are issues that the board looks at.
But it's public record.
Yes, it is.
I'm objecting. Any traffic that turns off of 302 onto Hacks Cross, any big trucks, these are not residential vehicles. These are heavy-weighted and long trucks. And making that turn from 302 onto Hacks will actually be a generated new trip. If they were already on Hacks Cross, that would be a routine trip, but once they leave 302, that's a generated trip. That's not traffic that's normally found in a residential area. So the noise, the sounds, the braking, the smell, the vibration, the lighting, and everything that they bring it with hazmat that they're in carriage on the back of that truck is all something that should be considered for the homes that live near in that area. In addition to that, public health, there's been 9,500 cases of monkeypox just arriving, where they're saying that this is a public health emergency. 750 of those cases are in Georgia, and these 18-wheelers, they travel interstate. So that's something to also consider when you're routing these trucks into residential areas or close by. Putting this next to a residential area will be setting a precedence so that more and more of them will infiltrate upon residential neighborhoods. And you heard today that they don't want that. What I saw on that diagram of the C1 and C2 uses, it's just a hodgepodge. Never in my life have I seen zoning that looked like that. You go from everything from agricultural uses that are protected by the state to also putting in hotels and mobile home sales. This is a hodgepodge of something that I have never seen in zoning for permitted uses. Usually permitted uses are a handful of uses that are acceptable in that area. Everything else that has a potential to be a detriment to the neighborhood is a conditional use. I would ask that you please consider honing in on those permitted uses and reducing them to a handful of uses. Anything that has potential for harm on a neighborhood, please list that as a conditional use. Size and scope of this project. Size and scope is not something that's going to serve the neighborhood. Size and scope would be something like a doctor's office, a dentist's office, maybe a beauty shop, something that would actually serve as a service to the neighborhoods, not serve traffic on 302 and then making them turn onto Hacks Cross. Down where 78 comes out onto Hacks Cross, when those trucks cut across from that interstate, they block the whole road. I don't expect this to be any different coming off of 302, holding up traffic. I seen a school bus accident right there off of 78 where the tractor trailers come off that highway. It's not a good fit. In addition to that, the hours of operation are 24 hours. Homeowners,
Additional 30 seconds, additional 30.
okay, they like to sleep. When you have 18-wheelers sounding off their air brakes and everything else, that's going to disrupt their sleep in their homes. Hours of operation, 24 hours? No. Maybe a corner station that does some body work or does some tire changes that could help. That would be more in alignment for size and scope of what's needed in that neighborhood, not what's being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bean. Anyone else?
I'm Evelyn Carrico, 10585 Catalpa in the Branch. And I just want to mention, to consider our home values. We are an older neighborhood, so our homes are 25 to 30 years old. They're not the 300, 350,000, 400,000 homes being built. So when the bubble was available, you know, we were like 155 square foot, which was great, but they said you need to be ready to move in 3 weeks, and nobody was. So the thing is that our values are never going to go up over 300,000, maybe not even over 260. So anything that knocks down our home values will be a big hit on us. And I just want y'all to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Jennifer Headley. I live at 10073 Hyman Drive in Magnolia. The information that was provided by the attorney and the other person that represents the company doesn't reflect the traffic for the tractor trailers that would be brought by that. The lawyer stated false information that the denial was for the safety solely of the Atlanta store, but that's not correct. It was the left turn onto Hacks. He mentioned traffic from big box stores, but Walmart doesn't have truck traffic the way that QT does. The state actually denied QT to have exits onto 305 due to the amount of traffic on 305. I'm not sure why the city would approve for another station similar to QT to have an exit onto Hacks Cross. You have that big bend, people fly up and down it. Directional signs don't work. People don't follow the speed limit. They fly up and down Magnolia, they're speed bumps. Nobody follows any of those signs. Those signs are all punishable by law, by ticket. Who's going to stand outside and give tickets to truck drivers if they're making the wrong turn because they're not following the directional signs? Or if they follow the directional sign, are they going to reverse back onto Hacks Cross? Those are all concerns of mine.
Thank you, Ms. Hadley. Anyone else?
My name is Pamela Hunt. I live at 10665 Loblolly Street in the Branch. And excuse me, I have a little bit of a respiratory problem, so if I have trouble, just be patient.
Take your time.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak here today. I just have a little question, and it's not really about what right now, but it's about future. And when you consider that there's this gas station, we'll call it a gas station, convenience store, I'll give you that. But there's those other plats that are right there that could be used and put in for another extra parking so that the trucks, is there any conditions or guarantees from Racetrack that they will not try to expand, excuse me, God bless you, expand that area into a further truck stop, that we would be able to be more concerned about having overnight trucking and overnight, well, we all know what happens when you have overnight trucking, the crime and the use of certain vices are more readily available. And that's not something that we want near our kids and near our homes. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
I'm Julie Hatter. I live at 10029 Reagan Drive. This is my first time here. I had a couple of ladies contact me via the Nextdoor app and sent me information. I'm going to say my complaint would probably be the hazard, the gasoline, all the things that could be dangerous to the community. I'm a survivor now for 3 years, so I know 100% about illness, and if this could bring any type of illness to anyone, it should not be worth it. And another thing I thought about while I was just sitting here listening, I'm trying not to repeat anything anybody else has said, but I think about the little roadside area that was there for so long and had to be closed down. And I'm assuming because of drug and all other things that we do not need in this area. So a busy place like that, I would say that you have big chances of all kinds of illegal actions coming about. People coming from all over the country. So that's my biggest issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Case. I live at 10495 Loblolly Street. And my only concerns with the whole thing is some things that I've seen already in the city, right? The exit road for the semi-trailers to exit on Hacks Cross. I've already seen many times down on Hacks Cross, down by the other station down there, whatever that is called. I can't remember what it's called, but there's an exit ramp from the interstate, and those trucks will pull out and come at the halfway point and then block the southbound traffic because they're trying to get across to go northbound, right? They know it's hard for them to get out, so they force their way out, and then they can. I mean, there's been a time when I've almost ran my car underneath the semi because he pulled out in front of everybody and then just sat there. So that's a safety concern without a light, and if you put a light there, it's close to another light. So I mean, how does that help for congestion of traffic, right? If you have to go from one light to another light, and then have a bottleneck right there. So, but the other concern I have is about the entrance over to Branch Road, right? I live in that development over there, and there are no sidewalks in that development, right? As someone mentioned, it was built back in the 90s, the development, and there's no sidewalks. People walk on the street, and if you invite more traffic into that area, right, now you have the risk of somebody getting hit by another vehicle, right? They already come in there, people come in there on Branch Road and already kind of fly down through Branch Road. The speed bumps that were on Branch Road before it was paved were removed and never put back, right? So that just opens it up for them to travel even more at a higher rate of speed. So those are my concerns. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Anyone else? Final call. Public comments are closed at this time. Does the board have any questions based on anything that came out of the public comments that you'd like to ask staff or the applicant?
Yeah, Mayor, I do have one question for Mr. Swims. We recently approved, I think, a fueling station, gas station at Progress and Hacks. Is there not a signalization there, a signal light there?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
There was a signal put up before that was brought before the board.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I'll make a couple of comments. There were great issues brought up on either side. Now, the issue of trucks going south on Hacks from 302, to say that's a new trip, they're doing that every day. They're already going from 302 south to get on 78 Highway. They do that several times an hour already. So that's not additional trips. The argument made that the traffic is going to increase because of the racetrack, I don't see that. The racetrack is not a destination point. It's not a Buc-ee's where everybody says, okay, we want to go, while we're out, we're going to stop at racetrack. If you're going to go there, it's because it's convenient to go there. I don't believe that it's going to be an effect on your property values. And the reason I say that is we had a room filled with many more people than you have here tonight several years ago when there was a request to put in a Burger King over by Windstone. This room was packed with people objecting to it. They said we're going to have trash from the dumpster blown everywhere. We're going to have a rodent infestation from the food in the dumpsters. And we're going to have lower property values. Well, that's been, I don't know how many years ago. They have no rat infestation. They don't have litter. And the property values over there are sky high. So all of the concerns about traffic, and I don't think you'll find a realtor in DeSoto County that says any development that's happened in DeSoto County has caused anybody's property to be less than what it was when it was built. everybody's gone, but even the worst house you can find probably costs more than what it did 10 years ago. It's just a fact. Now, the other point that the uses that I brought up before, almost all of those uses are normal business hours, or maybe some that extend a little bit, maybe to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock if it was a restaurant. But the racetrack is a 24/7. And the lady that talks second brought that point up. That's a big difference in what all the uses that are available already. And the people that bought in the branch and everything said, okay, if I knew what was going in there, I knew that these uses were available. But nobody had a use in there that was 24/7. So if you made a decision to buy a house in the branch based on the existing uses that's in C2, you've got a shot saying something's going to come in now that's 24/7. And with the lighting and the noise that comes in with the trucks and everything, even on the holidays, it's 24/7, 365. And I know they run a tight ship with trying to control crime with cameras and everything, but still, it's a big difference to the community to have something that's there that's 24/7 rather than a normal 8 to 5 business, or something that's from 10 to 9 is a big restaurant. And I'll give you an example. Everybody wants a Cracker Barrel to come to Olive Branch. Well, Cracker Barrel is not coming to Olive Branch right now because they've got bean counters and they've got a policy that they draw a circle around their existing businesses, and they won't come any closer in that circle. There's one up there on Hacks Cross already, and they've told us multiple times, including my father, who actually knew the person that was in charge of that, we're not coming because it's too close. But that restaurant is not doing the business it used to do. So I wouldn't be surprised one day if they said, this place is just costing us money, we need to close it. If they wanted to come down here on that corner and open it, that's going to draw a lot of traffic. And it's going to be hours that are, say, maybe from breakfast till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then it's closed. So to me, that's a big difference that's going to have a negative effect on the community, is having something that's going to be open 24/7 rather than existing uses that do not allow that.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon.
Mayor,
Mr. Wallace?
it was brought up about the comprehensive plan. We just adopted it, re-adopted it, back earlier in the summer. We had one person show up, and we have public meetings twice. I don't know, and it was advertised. And we put it on social media, we put it in the paper, everything goes out. It goes out in the forum. We had one person show up. And zoning, this has been zoned this way since I was 20 years old, 25 years old in the county. I think what we're deciding whether or not they can sell gas. And that's basically the gist of it, right? If it wasn't for us to be adopting the conditional use, it would already been approved and we wouldn't even heard about it.
That's correct. If you wouldn't have passed that ordinance 8 months ago, permits would have been pulled and it would have been built just like it came in the city from the county zone that way. And you're correct, the comprehensive plan and the future land use map gets revised. The board's been here longer than I have, but about every 2.5 to 3 years, it gets revised with public comments. And it's on the website for anybody to look at and review and take every parcel within the city and look at the zoning and give your input on that zoning. Go ahead.
I think we have one person show up. We wish we had more. I don't know what we can do really. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Input or motions from the board?
Mayor Adams, I'll tender a motion. And before I do, I'm going to clarify with a couple of comments, and I will not be redundant. But in addition to everybody's comments here and the board members, I find it a little interesting that everyone seems to be against trucks and truck stops. And yet when you go to Kroger to buy groceries, you want the shelves stocked. And I do too. When you go to Walmart, you want your shelves stocked. And I do too. Well, guess what stocks those shelves? It's trucks that bring those goods that we want and need. I find no substantial evidence that traffic will be increased, because I agree with Alderman Dickerson, if it was a Buc-ee's, it'd be a destination stop. There's traffic going by those two streets all the time anyway. We had a binder provided to us tonight. Mr. Bass alluded to it. Property values, regardless of what's being built in this county, are going up every year. There's no evidence to substantiate a loss of property value. And again, crime is a condition of the heart. We have laws in the books today, both biblically and municipalities have them, that says you can't steal, murder, and et cetera, and yet crime still goes on. That's something we have to change as a society, and we also have to police as a society. So with those comments, I will make a motion to modify, which is option 4, to reverse the Board of Adjustments decision with 2 conditions. Actually one. I would like to put the condition in that when you go to the drawing that's up there, at the engineer's discretion, we put a circular drive in the back or make that back alley one-way headed toward Hacks Cross Road. Because I agree with Alderman Collins that you can put all the signs up that you want, but unless you mitigate the traffic, it's in some way it's not going to happen. So again, I'll make a motion to overturn the Board of Adjustments decision to allow this racetrack property to go, and with one condition that we do the circular drive or one-way street subject to the engineer's discretion.
And Alderman Earhart, just a question for clarification. You have one condition, which is to incorporate a traffic circle on that drive. Mr. Gambone, can you go back to the staff recommendation and the 4 conditions, I believe it was, that were submitted to the BZA? Does your motion also include the 4 original conditions, or is it subject only to the traffic circle condition? We just want to make sure that we understand all of the conditions that apply to your motion, and that the board understands what it may be voting on if there were a second.
Yes, they are included in that modification.
So it includes the 4 and then your additional requirement for the lane to be a roundabout or head out to Hacks. So your motion is to approve, reverse and approve this based on those 4 conditions that were put in by the BZA, and then also to require a roundabout or a lane to force traffic back to Hacks Cross Road and not into the area of the branch.
That is correct. So
Okay.
circular drive would be condition number 5.
Gotcha. Mr. Collins?
Let me ask you, what about the 50-foot buffer? I think the lawyer recommended we put that in.
Is that the tree preservation? I have no objection to that. So
50-foot wide tree preservation easement.
To buffer the subdivision of the branch?
Yeah, that's number 4.
Thank you, Alderman Collins. I will include that as well.
So the motion includes the original 4, and it also includes the roundabout or traffic tax cross road and the 50-foot buffer on the west side of this proposed development abutting up against the branch. Any other items?
And that does include a red light on Hacks.
Includes what now?
Yes, when they develop isn't it?
No, on Hacks.
No.
Mr. Gambone, will you address the timing of the traffic signal on Hacks? I believe that's tied to phase 2 of the development.
That's what's recommended in the ensuing agenda item, is that they would redo the traffic study at the point that that drive was connected to Branch Road. They would do the signal and extend the turn lane over at Old Goodman Road and Highway 302, and then at that point, they would reassess based on what was on the ground and anticipate the remaining uses that would be developed on the balance of the 43 acres, and at that point, assess the need for a traffic signal also at Hacks Cross.
And that would be for future development. It wouldn't be attached to this developer. It would not
No, sir.
attach to racetrack. It'd be on future development. Is that correct?
It could, but, you know, that's related to, that's in your next agenda item, which is
Okay.
the subdivision
plan.
of the 43 acres. So my understanding is that racetrack, should this get approved, racetrack would acquire the entire 43 acres. So essentially, they would be the developer.
Okay, so the board's not going to consider the traffic signal at this point as part of this.
It would be the next agenda item.
Okay.
It's incorporated into that.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
So unless Mr. Dye suggests otherwise, I think we can
No.
address that in the next.
I agree.
Okay.
In-
You said 4
Ma'am,
Ma'am?
The-
Did you say 4 things like the,
go back to the 4 conditions. These four that are up there now, 1 through 4, plus the roundabout or directing traffic to Hacks Cross Road and the 50-foot buffer joining the branch. Anything else, board? Hearing none, Ms. Clerk, would you do a roll call? Thank you. Is there a second on Mr. Earhart's motion? Thank you, sir.
second?
Second by Alderwoman Hamilton. Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stewart.
Aldridge.
Okay. A yes vote would reverse the decision of the Board of Adjustment and modify the condition list to include the 4 original conditions plus 2 additional conditions regarding the tree preservation easement and a traffic circle.
And it would allow the racetrack to go in.
Yes. And so a yes vote would reverse the Board of Adjustment and grant the conditional use permit to racetrack, subject to 6 conditions. So a yes vote is to reverse the Board of Adjustment and approve the racetrack conditional use permit, subject to the 6 conditions we've discussed. That's what a yes vote would do.
Aldridge. No. Collins.
Yes.
Dickerson.
No.
Earhart.
Aye.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Henderson.
No.
Wallace.
No.
Motion fails for lack of majority. Any additional motions on this particular application?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to affirm the decision to deny based on the anticipated adverse impact of the 24-hour hours for that operation.
Okay. So for clarity, then, a yes vote on this would be to deny the proposed application. Any questions, board? Roll call.
Aldridge.
Yep.
Mayor Adams, under that motion, we would be affirming and supporting, upholding the BZA's
Decision to
correct?
deny.
That's right.
Yep.
And was there a second to that motion, Mayor?
Was there a second to that? Mr. Wallace was second. Now any discussion? Ms. Stewart?
Aldridge. Yes. Collins.
No.
Dickerson.
Yes.
Earhart.
No.
Hamilton.
No.
Henderson.
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
I'm seeing 4 yeses to deny and 3 noes. 4 yeses to deny and 3 noes, so the application is hereby denied.
Mayor, that's correct. Just for clarity's sake, the application for the conditional use permit is denied. A past motion affirms the prior decision of the Board of Adjustment.
And the next plat item, if the applicant wishes to go forward with the plat, is a plat in general, not specific to this development. Does the applicant wish to go forward on the plat? Okay. Wish to remove it from the agenda? Okay, thank you. That item's been tabled, board. No action required.
And really, Mayor, just for clarity's sake, it's actually just withdrawn altogether. They're withdrawing, Mr. Davis, y'all were withdrawing the application altogether, not simply tabling to a future date. Is that correct?
Okay, totally withdrawn. Very good. Planning Commission, new business. 1 property, I believe, remaining. Is that correct, Mr. Gambone?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I've got to go through this PowerPoint.
Thank you to all who spoke and gave input tonight. And while you're looking for that, I'm going to ask Mr. J.D. Cox to come forward. Mr. J.D. Cox with North Central. Good evening, sir. Thank you. This came about by not my doings, not the board's doing, but by our staff and our leadership in our departments such as Public Works and Engineering and other departments that North Central has been a very large help on. And I'd like to read this recognition of J.D. Cox. Mayor Kenneth R. Adams and the Board of Aldermen give special recognition to J.D. Cox and North Central Electric Cooperative for their unwavering support and dedication to the city of Olive Branch. Mr. Cox consistently goes above and beyond in the field working with city employees on a variety of projects and safety opportunities. North Central regularly partners with the city of Olive Branch concerning safety, training, and workforce recruitment opportunities. We greatly appreciate the partnership we have with North Central and Mr. J.D. Cox. I agree wholeheartedly. A lot of times residents can't always separate that the city doesn't run the street lights, it doesn't keep the utilities going. But Mr. Cox works with the city so well, hand in glove, that we are just as one. So I thank you for your help over the years, and the staff does as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, J.D.
Almost got the monkeypox right there. All right, continuing on. So there's one property that is not clean, not mowed. Is anyone here associated with the 7840 Allen Ridge? Anyone associated with 7840 Allen Ridge? Staff report, please, or just general update.
That still has not been mowed. There's pictures on the screen, Mayor, showing the location of the property in Allendale, and then some photos of the site as of August 28th.
Motion made by Mr. Wallace to condemn the lot or consider it a nuisance and have the city clean the property ourselves or have contract labor clean the property. A motion by Mr. Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Aldridge. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number one, I believe, is asked to be tabled. Is that on street supplies? We're waiting on additional information to come in, so no action required on item number one. Item number two, consideration of bids opened August the 12th, 2024 for natural gas supplies. It was tabled until this meeting on August the 20th. It was tabled until tonight's meeting. You have the list of items on natural gas supplies board. If you're comfortable with that, or if you have questions, let us know, but that's just to go forward with our annual needs for those supplies. Was that Mr. Wallace? Mr. Wallace, motion to approve. Second, Mr. Dickerson. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Mayor, can I stop us for a second on number one, old business one, street supplies? Did we actually vote on that yet?
I thought it was going to be, thought that was to be tabled.
It
Is that?
is to be tabled, but
Okay.
we need a motion second vote to table.
Okay. Do we have a motion to table it?
Motion to table. 2 weeks.
Mr. Dickerson, motion to table for 2 weeks. Second, Mr. Wallace, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, so tabled until 2 weeks from today to the next meeting. Thank you. Item three, bids opened August the 12th for water and wastewater supplies. Again, tabled on August the 20th until tonight's meeting. If you, any questions on those supplies? Motion to approve by Ms. Henderson. Second by Ms. Hamilton. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of bids opened August the 12th, 2024 for Public Works Complex. It was tabled again on August the 20th, or it was tabled on August the 20th until tonight's meeting. You have information in your packet on the bid for the Public Works Complex.
Motion to approve.
And just for clarity, is your motion to, when you say motion to approve, is that a motion to award the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
But then there may be more discussion.
Okay.
before.
So and I'm sorry to belabor the point, but is your motion to accept the recommendation of the Public Works Director and COO and Fisher and Arnold to award the base bid and alternate one to A and B Construction. Is that your motion? Okay.
Second, Mr. Wallace. Discussion, if there is any. All in favor? All opposed? Did everybody vote? Okay. Motion to pass, to award is approved to the primary, and then the secondary
Well, it's a base bid and alternate.
alternate bid.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's
This is
A and
the
B.
Public Works Complex.
A and B Construction
A
Company.
and B Construction. Base bid and the alternate award was the motion,
Okay,
based on the recommendation of staff.
thank you. Okay. Item 5 is consideration of bids open on July the 16th for the air traffic control tower rehabilitation project at the airport. It's been recommended from Chief Financial Officer Jason May that we go with the bid that you see in your packet.
Mayor, it's Wagner.
Wagner, $623,000. Mr. Dickerson, motion. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Wallace. All in favor? All opposed? Mr. May, this involves grant opportunity, is that correct? Okay. New business, consideration of resolution setting our tax millage rate for fiscal year 2024 and 2025. You have the large notebook in front of you, and hats off to all the department heads and to Chief Financial Officer Jason May for the tremendous amount of work that's gone into this over the last 3.5 months to get it ready. So the millage rate, we're fortunate we're able to maintain and hold it the same at 38.5. You're aware of the items in the budget based on the special call budget meeting and the public meeting, although no one spoke out last occasion, but there have been no changes since you looked at it last, other than item number 4, the golf cart purchase was added, and that's the only change from when we originally met. Is there a motion to approve the millage rate of 38.5 to remain the same? Is there a motion to approve that millage rate? Mr. Collins' motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Earhart. All in favor? All opposed? Item 2 is the motion to approve the budget as is in your binder with the summary on page 1. I won't cover the 24-25 highlights on page 2, but you've seen those a couple of times before, I think. This is the binder. First, y'all approved the millage rate first, the 38.5. The second is to approve the actual budget that we've worked on.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Wallace, motion to approve this budget. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Aldridge, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. May. Maybe one less weekend you can stay away from City Hall. His vehicle's kind of been a natural item at the City Hall for the last 3 months on the weekend, I think, so thank you very much. Item number 3, consideration of the rodeo production agreement. Sorry. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. 3, 4, and 5 all tie into the rodeo. Thank you, Mr. Dye. And one is the production agreement that you have in your packet, very similar to the last rodeos we've had. Item 4 is consideration of the outdoor festival to allow the city open container ordinance to stand down, in lack of a better word, for this festival, so that open containers allowed during the festival itself, as well as the authorized noise activity exemption to the noise ordinance that particular night or that evening that the rodeo takes place. This is the same 3 items that you've had for the last 3 rodeos that we've had. But any questions?
Hopefully our drought will continue through September the 7th.
Yes, sir.
We've had rain several times, but this year we're hoping the drought continues at least till the 8th.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, it is. There was a question by Mr. Collins about removing the equipment timely because the equipment remained and the gates and all too long for our satisfaction. But there's an item to cover it with the financial penalty if it's not removed quick enough. And we're getting toward a real decision point as we get closer anyway, because as the walkway gets added, the walking trail and those things going into place, we're gonna be more and more limited of having events like this once that starts. So items 3, 4, and 5, if there's a motion to approve for the M4 rodeo. Ms. Henderson, motion to approve. Second, Mr. Wallace. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Yes. Yes. Student Bailey Overstreet, thank you for visiting with our attorney today and shadowing him and spending some time with us in the meetings and taking this event in tonight. Do you have any questions from the board? You might have some questions that you'd like for them to answer. Well, thank you, and you're welcome to remain, but we are getting ready to go in executive session. And at that time, everyone leaves that's not part of the staff up here, the elected staff and the clerks.
I just hope you still don't have homework to go do. Been up here late.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have questions, let us know. Is there a motion to leave regular session with the intention of going into executive session? Ms. Henderson, motion. Second, Ms. Aldridge, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss those items listed 1 through 7?
So moved.
Motion, Earhart, second. Dickerson, all in favor? All opposed? We are now in executive session.
Objection over.